And welcome back to You and Your Taxes. I'm Rohit Vyas, and joining me is Neil Shah, Trust and Estates Attorney. We're talking about long-term care and how one should plan for it and the consequences of not planning for it. Now, we already know, Neil, consequences not very good, especially if you do have assets and you do fall seriously ill and need long-term care, which could stretch into years and years before mortality.
Correct.
And the consequences can be quite devastating to yourself and your family. I want to ask you about what kind of instruments are available to all of us in today's very confusing world of this issue. Are there insurance plans, for instance? Let me be absolutely ignorant and be confessedly ignorant about it. Are there insurance plans that look into this aspect of your life? We all know there's life insurance, we know there's disability insurance and those types of things. Is there some kind of insurance, and are there different types of insurance for long-term care, long-term disabilities, and so on and so forth?
Yeah, there absolutely are. And by the time people are watching this and have consulted with their advisor, they probably will have changed already. It is such a dynamic, it's such a ever-changing area of insurance. And the reason for that, Rohit, is people have been being born and people have been dying since the beginning of man. The purpose of paying for this long-term care has become sort of a losing bet for insurance companies, if you will, because although there is a 100% chance that everybody's going to die, and there is a pretty strong certainty that everybody's going to become disabled, with mortality, when it's over, it's over. The life insurance company pays a lump sum of money and they're done. With long-term care, you could be talking about a really long period of illness, and the insurance company is constantly dishing money out. So it's an expensive proposition, and for that reason, especially over the last 20 years or so, the long-term care insurance industry has gone through so many changes. So you'll find hybrids, and I'll warn anybody out there, long-term care insurance is not going to be cheap. It's not like going to be one of these term policies that you take out from a life insurance perspective, because of the reasons I just mentioned. There could be a protracted payment of a benefit period there. What we're seeing now in the market more so is that you'll see there are your traditional long-term care benefits, policies, which will say something to the effect that we're going to cover you for the next 5 years, or cover you for the next 3 years, and you can upgrade or downgrade the actual daily benefit. It's going to be $200 or $300 per day. You'll also find that there's going to be different periods of care that are provided. Maybe it's going to be assisted living facilities as well. There are going to be some vehicles that say that if you don't use your policy up, let's just say somebody dies suddenly and you don't need that long-term care, that you'll get a return of all the premiums that you paid. And for the life insurance company or for the long-term care insurance company, they don't mind doing that so much because at least they got to use your money during that period of time. And then for the insured, for the consumer, they like it because at least I had this insurance during that period of time. And lastly, I think what we're seeing more in the insurance model, and this is assuming that you haven't done sort of trust planning at this point, or you're piggybacked with some sort of trust planning. The other version that we're seeing a lot is a hybrid of the life insurance with the long-term care insurance. So it's common now for somebody to actually take out a life insurance policy and have a rider attached to that life insurance policy, which is kind of like an amendment or an added benefit, which reads that in addition to this life insurance benefit, this death benefit, you'll also have a day-to-day benefit which will be paid out in the event of a disability or in the event of some sort of
long-term healthcare needs and so on and so forth.
Exactly.
If somebody doesn't have this kind of planning, what could be the worst-case scenario, Neil? We're all dependent. We're assuming that Medicare and Medicaid would be around forever.
Right.
What if it isn't? Then what happens?
Right.
Well, do you ever get questions like that, by the way, from people?
Yeah, all the time.
And what do you tell them? I mean, how do you, how should we plan? And does that mean we just put away all our money that we earn into some kind of system that we are able to worry about our future and make sure our future is good, which is never sure anyway,
Yeah, it's never true, especially when I speak with my NRI clients.
Yeah.
I mean, my NRI clients tend to, especially the ones who have grown up in India and have moved here subsequently, there's a common theme that, okay, if I ever get sick, if I get disabled, I'm just moving to India.
Yeah.
I'm just going to move out, and when I move out, I'll go back to India. It'll be cheaper there, and I'll live like a king there.
Yeah.
What sometimes I think people lose sight of is the fact that you've got family here, you've got roots here, and after a certain age, it becomes more difficult to take a transatlantic flight back and forth.
Absolutely, yeah.
So sometimes I don't think that's as practical, often, unless you just have such deep roots still there and you don't have an attachment here.
Yeah.
With respect to the actual planning or the lack of planning, most elder law attorneys like ourselves will tell you that you get two kinds of phone calls. You get what we call pre-planning calls and you get crisis calls. So the pre-planning call is, okay, Neil, I think I might need this sort of care at some point. How do I plan for it? Let's talk about some what ifs. Those are pre-planning calls. Crisis calls are, hey, Neil, I'm calling you from the hospital. Mom or dad or my wife or my husband is not going to be able to come home, but we're going straight to the rehab facility from here. And from the rehab facility, we're probably going to go to either a nursing home or an assisted living facility. And that's the kind of case where in a crisis case, if you haven't done any planning, you've got to start sounding some alarms. You've got to start doing some really aggressive spend down strategies. Now, the strategies that we use are going to differ from state to state.
Yeah.
There are two different things you want to look at in a crisis case and in a pre-planning case. The rules are different if it's husband and wife or if it's just one single person. And here's the thing. If there's husband and wife that are an elderly couple and one person goes into a nursing home, the wife goes into a nursing home, there's this policy that we don't want to put dad in that situation out on the street. So dad's going to be allowed to keep certain things. Those are exemptions. What's dad going to be allowed to keep? He's going to be allowed to keep his home. He's going to be allowed to keep his car. He's going to be allowed to keep, state to state here, about $130,000 of cash. He's going to be allowed to prepay for funeral expenses. So there's a handful of exemptions here because we want to look out for dad. Anything above that is deemed to be an available resource, and you got to use that to pay for mom.
Okay.
Change it around a little bit, and let's just say that there is no dad, and it's just mom. She's a single person. She's widowed or whatever the case may be, and mom goes into a nursing home. Now there's no dad to take care of.
Yeah.
So the home is not protected in that case. Neither is the car. Neither is that $130,000. So the planning is done differently depending on whether you have mom and dad out there or just mom. A common strategy, and this is just by way of example, we said that a house, for example, would be an exempt asset. So what's common is, okay, we've got $30,000 in the bank that we want to save, and we also want to protect the house. And mom and dad are still out there, so dad is still at home, mom is in a nursing home. It's common to say that, okay, we've got this house, that's protected, but that $30,000 in the bank is not protected. So what you can do is take that $30,000 out of the bank and sometimes put an addition on the house or put the new roof on the house because all that money is exempt. This is all legal. These are all legitimate strategies, but these are what we call spend down strategies to get you back into eligibility mode.
Wow. Okay, we'll take another break. When we come back, I want to talk about another subject, which is documents to have in place precisely in case of situations like this, in case of healthcare emergencies and so on and so forth. We'll talk about that in a minute. We're talking to Neil Shah, Trust and Estates Attorney. This is You and Your Taxes. We'll be right back after another short break.